Welcome, and thank you for joining me here for about 10 minutes of meditation, contemplation before we jump on the mat and do a little yoga for the body and the mind. And today, the idea that came in for me is know thyself. Socrates, timeless, well known words. I was walking through the CU campus and noticed them up on the wall above the library in a place where we teach and inform and instill information into students. When the academy, the first Western school by most standards, some 2,000 years ago, was the academy. And the goal of the academy was to draw out the Latin root of the word edu means to draw out. And so Socrates and Plato had this school where the whole idea was to draw out the goodness and allow uh, to create an atmosphere for the students to get to know themselves and to know who they are, who they were, going back in history. But who are we? Who am I? That's a terrifying question. We could say, in a way, that all other questions, we get distracted by the world and we start asking questions about the world, and we tend to point our finger. Why does that happen? Is it really a question, or is it a statement? Know thyself. I have to ask the question, who am I? It's not my worldly wants and needs. Most of us go through that stage, defining our wants and needs. I remember conversations as a young boy, and I watched my daughter grow up with her friends. They'd sit for hours and talk about their favorite things, their favorite colors, their likes and their dislikes. And if you sit in most coffee shops today, you'll tend to hear a slightly more sophisticated version of the same thing. These are the things that are wrong. These are the things that are good. These are the things that I like and dislike. But where does it get us? Nowhere. It's like running on a treadmill. So the academy, Socrates and Plato, they weren't instilling information into the students. They weren't trying to teach them skills. They were trying to remove the barriers, the obstacles, the thinking and the beliefs that were hiding the true self, which they often referred to as goodness. They believed that underneath it all, there was a goodness waiting to be known. That's the true self. And it's good because it always has our best interest in mind. That's why we often push and struggle to figure out who we are in a world that is designed to hide the true self. It's a very sticky situation. It's why many tend to have this thing called a midlife crisis. Because we struggle, we fill ourselves with information, and we go out and apply it and perform and make money and support ourselves and do all those kinds of things to find at some point why I'm just not that happy doing all these things that I thought were supposed to make me happy. Now, the good news is there are no accidents. Nothing we've ever done has been wrong, but nothing we've ever done has been right. It just is. No accidents. So we can say, wow, okay, no accidents. Everything is just right. I'm here right now in this moment. How do I find happiness? How do I find peace of mind? How can I find fulfillment? Well, we start by asking those questions and they become a mantra. And that mantra starts to get answered. We just have to raise the question. Who am I really? The I that I think I am is a bit unhappy, a bit unfulfilled, a bit concerned about outer situations. Let me not be distracted by them. Let all signs and symbols point the inner way to fulfillment. See, I often, in moments like this, I often think of the movie Alice in Wonderland. It's a classic Disney movie. Most have seen it. And you remember when she's down the rabbit hole, it's dark and scary, and all the signs, remember there she gets to these crossroads and the signs point in all kinds of directions. It didn't matter which way she went. It doesn't matter which road we choose. They are all well traveled. How do we choose the road less traveled? Well, we don't pick to see which road has the least amount of wear on it. It's not that. The road less traveled is the inner road, the inner path. It's less traveled because it's the only road that hasn't been traveled yet. And we start down it, we embark down that inner road less traveled simply by raising to question the things that aren't working, developing a gentle desire to know thyself. I want to know who I really am, the version of myself that's happy and whole. I want to know that. That's our yoga. It takes trust. I have to trust that there's a version of myself that is happy and whole, completely free, devoid of attachment. I have to trust that. Then I have to raise the the hard questions. Who am I? And I have to have the willingness and the desire to know thyself. That's why Socrates' words are timeless. It really should say, know thyself, dot, 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 above all else. Any substitution for that is simply a delay for the inevitable truth, knowing who I am. It's a constant practice. The rewards are priceless. All right. Welcome and thank you for joining me here. This is a 30-minute green class, and we're going to work on the shoulders and the spine. We're going to put the spine in extension today mostly. We had quite a bit of flexion in yesterday's orange class. And so we're going to have some soothing, sustainable extension that results in a different form of compression. Remember, this practice is all about compression. That's what heals the Jones, the bones and the joints. So we're going to start with a bolster under your head, have your strap by your side, sit in close to the wall, lie back, swing your legs up, Inch yourself back until you feel the sacrum, tailbone resting on the floor, and the knees extending. Hands at your sides, palms up, head supported. Rest. To rest is to heal. Why? Because we rest into true self. We rest into wholeness. Maybe that's the difference between physical rest and a more spiritual rest. Bring your arms out to a T shape, palms up toward the ceiling. And then we start to approach the rigidity in the shoulders by moving the elbows toward 90 degrees, forming a goalpost shape, elbows wrapping around the end of the bolster. And then we pause here a moment and see, can we begin to have the back of the hand, the fingernails, thumbnails moving onto the floor or toward the floor? The shape reveals the restriction where we spend time with it to let it dissolve. If you can advance the shape and have the fingers and hands under the bolster, you start to move them under. We push no shape before it's time. We sometimes interlock the fingers, but today just have the hands close together, maybe the fingers touching a bit, and then lift the chin, nose high, throat open, slowly turn to the right. Keep lifting the chin and making the turn. So as you turn to the right, the chin lifts away from the chest. Reveal the restriction in conjunction with any shoulder sensation. With your eyes closed, breathing in and out of your nose, get to know the restriction, welcome the feedback, and then rest into it. Now, if we're meeting ourselves properly in the shape, the sensation that comes from the restriction points us toward a deep, restful state. It's healing sensation. Increase the turn to the right subtly. Feel the limiting sensation, the limiting feedback, whatever and wherever it is. And then slowly bring your head back to the center. Soften. Make sure your hands and arms are in a sustainable place. You can make a little adjustment on them, open them up, Move back out to a T shape if necessary. And then with the chin lifted high, the back of the head pressing the bolster, slowly turn your nose to the left, throat open. Welcome the feedback in the form of restriction. Rest into it. Observe the shape, observe the rise and fall of the belly, the feeling of the breath in and out of the nose. Increase the turn to the left thoughtfully. And then bring your head back to the center. Release your arms down by your sides. Now, remove the bolster, set it to the side, and grab your strap. Your head will rest on the floor. Now, if it's too straining on the head or the neck to have the head on the floor, then a little support would be fine. You could use a soft block or a cushion to support the head. The reason the bolster doesn't work, at least crosswise, is apparent here in a moment. You're going to take the strap, fold it in half twice. So you end up holding the strap overhand, over your face, toward the ceiling, shoulder width apart. Close your eyes, lift your chin, open your throat, squeeze the strap. Squeeze your fingers, your thumbs. Tug on the strap. You feel a traction on the strap between your two hands, and then press toward the ceiling, broadening the shoulder blades. Eyes closed, throat open. Don't let your grip slip. Rest the belly down and make a big, slow, sweeping arc overhead toward the floor. Now we identify the obstacles to mobility. That's the name of the game that we call Avita Yoga, right? We just discover the restriction, got to have the willingness to do so, because I have a strong desire to remain mobile, have full range of motion, and be pain-free for a lifetime. Lowering slowly, keep the traction on the strap, keep the fingers firm. There's no accomplishing the shape, there's only touching into the feedback and giving it time to resolve. Then you might feel the waistline open up, and you might feel the belly hollow out, a release around the diaphragm and the low ribs. Maybe you feel the impingement, a little arthritis in the shoulder. So be it. Still, the fingers firm, the thumbs engaged. Very sustainable squeeze along with the traction that helps extend the elbows. We don't care how close your hands and arms are to the floor. We care only about the quality of the feedback. Reach away, tug on the strap. Have a fuller breath into the rib cage. Tone the belly down. Feel the expansion of the ribs multidimensionally. And as you release that breath, diminish the effort. Let the shoulders sink toward the floor and begin to raise the arms, standing them up. So the shoulder head sinks down into the floor as you float your hands toward the ceiling. Go slow. Once up to the point where your arms are fairly vertical, pause. Less effort yet, but keep the shape. Okay, now set the strap aside and have both arms right back up toward the ceiling. After squeezing the strap, now we're going to open the fingers, spread open the palms a lot, very dynamic. Press toward the ceiling, broaden the shoulders, throat open, lower slowly, reaching, arcing the arms overhead toward the floor. Now, one arm might lower a little more than the other. Usually one shoulder has more impingement than the other. So that's all right. Let one arm advance a little more if it wants to. Keep the other one right on the healing sensation. It goes for both arms, really. It just might be in different places. If your hands and fingernails make it to the floor, then you're active, trying to get the back of the wrist to the floor. Your aim is to increase the surface area of the back of the hand and arm on the floor. It's a very dynamic, muscly activity. There might be a little shaking. The shaking that we welcome, just like welcoming the cramps and welcoming all the feedback gives the muscles, the joints, connective tissue, and nervous system all the opportunity to reorganize. Once again, a full breath into the rib cage. Release the breath. Start a very slow rise of the arms, standing them up shoulder heads heavy down toward the floor. Once perpendicular, pause. And bend your elbows, rest your arms at your sides. Bend the left knee, bring the left shoulder. Bend the left knee, bring the left knee toward the left shoulder. So with the interlock of the fingers over the knee if doable, behind the knee if necessary. Sink into the shape. Ease the shoulders away from the ears. Move the elbows toward your midline. So kind of moving the elbows in toward your sides. Shoulders away from the ears. So we're working on the hip flexion and depressing the shoulders. Elbows in. A different form of healing compression on the shoulders. All right, release your left leg up. Switch the interlock of the fingers. Go behind the thigh if necessary. It's, in a way, two different shapes, either behind the thigh or over the knee. They have different impact. Elbows in toward the sides either way, shoulders down away from the ears. Close your eyes, breathe through the nose, and let your mind be in your knee, in your fingers, in your hip, in the elbows and arms, moving in toward the sides, shoulders depressing away from the ears. Gently release your heel back up onto the wall. Rest your arms at your sides, palms up. Bend your knees. Roll onto one side. Position your bolster lengthwise on your mat. Have your strap handy. Sitting on the end of the bolster, lie back so that the tailbone is supported, the head maybe a little less so. Knees bent, feet on the floor. Arms out in a T shape. Knees bent, feet on the floor. And so just have a moment here. Feel the expanse through the rib cage. tissues adjust and adapt to the exposure of increased movement. Feel that happening to the rib cage. Grab the strap, fold it in half twice. We're going to hold it a little closer together so the hands are close together, pushing it toward the ceiling. One at a time, extend your legs. Make sure there's no strong pinch or pain in the low back. The heels are about mat width apart. The belly relaxes down, the grip firms. Reach toward the ceiling. Make the slow, steady, arcing movement overhead toward the floor. Elbows straight, triceps engaged, throat open. Now we're going to target any restriction in the shoulders as we aim for a release across the belly, the diaphragm across the low ribs, all the abdominal attachments on the rim of the pelvis. Jaw relaxed, your face relaxed, your eyes closed. Reach away, squeeze the strap, tug on it between your two hands, kind and steady. Now move a couple larger breaths into the rib cage. Feel the expanse of the ribs, the release of the tissues between them. How do they release? Well, we bump into the resistance. A fuller, bigger breath in. And as you release the breath, release the strap and slowly move your arms. The elbows can bend a little bit. Move them out very slowly toward a T position. Rest. Now, the same way we expose and dissolve restrictions to mobility and health in the joints, we expose and give up the limitations and obstacles to a happy, whole, true self. Maybe that's why they call it salvation, because when we salvage something, we salvage for gold. We have to find it. We've got to make our way through that which is not the treasure to find it. Salvage true self. Bend your knees and gently roll off the bolster onto one side. Adjust the bolster to support your head. Curl up and then push yourself up. Yeah, beautiful. Sit for a moment, just close the eyes, drop the shoulders. Plant and nourish the seed to true self. That's the practice. How do we get there? We weed the garden. We have to remove the barriers to it. As an outer reflection of that inner yoga, bring your hands to your heart. Namaste.